listening, and thanks for tuning in to yet another episode of your Slightly Mighty podcast. My name is Hop, and once again, I'll be your humble host and facilitator. This will be our 9th Slightly Mighty episode. If you have enjoyed the show so far, please like, comment, subscribe, and share the show on whatever social media platforms that you frequently inhabit. If you would like to see the show continue to grow, please know that this can only be achieved by sharing the show with others who may find our conversations interesting. If you have any criticisms and suggestions to make the show better, please feel free to send these along to hopturn@gmail.com. I do not receive any financial compensation for the show in any way, but I would like for as many people to hear these conversations as possible and for the show to grow along with the community we attempt to serve and represent. And that's how we do it. For today's show, we are lucky enough to have two very influential local musicians who just happen to be longtime friends, Charlton Singleton and Papa Robbie Ellington. Charlton has represented Charleston on huge international stages with his Grammy Award-winning group, Ranky Tanky. Papa Robbie Papa Robbie Ellington has graced many stages with his lyrical talents, most notably with Charleston's premier dancehall reggae band, the Dub Plates, in addition to lending his voice as guest host for NPR's Roots Music Karamo, which I know that many of us listen to on our way home from gigs on Saturday nights, myself included. Welcome to the show, gentlemen, and thanks for taking some time for talking to us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Good stuff. It seems you guys have been friends for a long time. Y'all want to dig into some of that history and share with our listeners? How did all get started?
How it started. We met, we were seniors in high school. I went to Wando High School over in Mount Pleasant. Rob went to Burke High School in downtown Charleston. And we were a part of a group called the Botillion, which was then a part of Jack and Jill of America.
Yep.
And if you're unfamiliar with what the Botillion is, it's very closely associated, I guess, with cotillion for girls. And so there were a group of guys from different schools in the Tri-County area. They got a few from this school, a few from this school, the high schools. And basically, they every weekend we would have guest speakers to come in that were noted professionals in the area that would talk to us about a variety of things. Manhood and just a bunch of different things.
Yeah. So it's like a community outreach type thing, or?
I wouldn't call it that. It was more like a rites of passage kind of group. Sorry. It's a rite of passage group. So the idea was to give us mentors, to show us what life is going to be like beyond high school, and just looking out into the future. We had stuff like manners, how what utensils you're supposed to use and public speaking. I see.
And
you see what I'm saying?
Like preparation.
Preparation
for the next step.
But I looked at it just being the selfish person that I am. I looked at it as being, we were all kind of the who's who of seniors in high school and our school.
So it was a cool club too.
It was. We had our own little cool thing going. But that's how we initially met. Yeah.
And the teachers were the ones that, like, teachers and people from the community would nominate us.
Yeah.
So I know Charlton Singleton. That's a good kid.
Yeah.
Let me make sure that he
kind of vouch for you.
They vouch for you.
Right.
So that's how
we're
you
gonna send
end up
Robert
there.
Ellington and him. From here, those are the ones. That's the cream of the crop here. So
it's like an academic social Avengers.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
They still do that, or is that?
Yes,
it still happens. Yeah, still doing it.
So what inspired both of you guys to get into music? I mean, what year was that for you both, or however you want to kind of like look into that?
I'm gonna let Charlton do that one first.
I started playing piano and taking lessons when I was 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was just trying to follow what my sister and brother were doing. My sister was 13 at the time. My brother was 10 at the time. And we had a teacher that would come to our house and give them 30-minute lessons each. And it was one of those things that when my sister took the lesson, my brother had to sit next to them and watch, and then they would switch. And for that hour, being the 3-year-old, kid brother, the brat, I didn't have anybody to bother. Right. And so I was just always getting in the way. And my father, one time, he just sat me down and said, "You getting in the way." So he made a deal with me. He said, you can sit over there You can't get up and get down. You can't fidget. You can't run out of the room and run back. Right, for a 3-year-old.
Yeah,
you
right.
know. But
It's asking a lot.
That is asking a lot.
that's asking a lot. But for some reason, I sat there and I watched intently. And when you're a 3-year-old, if anybody out there knows, if you have a younger sibling that was that age, or you have kids that were that age, or whatever have you, they are extremely impressionable, and they will copy and say everything you do. And so once that hour was done, I was up on that piano trying to remember and do everything that my sister and my brother did, and that's how it started. That's the short story.
Yeah. And do they still play? Or they
No. They didn't really play. They didn't play piano very long. My sister actually played the cello all through high school and was an all-state cellist.
Okay.
My brother stopped with music, and he became the jock of the family, and he played high school baseball and football and college scholarship and all of that stuff. So I'm the only one. I'm the last one standing out of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
What about you, sir?
Me, I grew up around music, hearing it. My mom sang, my granny sang, my sister was in the choir in high school. I was in the chorus in middle school, played the baritone horn for about 3 years.
Wait.
Didn't know
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I played the baritone horn.
Oh, I'm going to get you one.
So I played the baritone horn, but true story, I was too intimidated about going to high school and playing for Burke. Burke High School was an intimidating school, okay, on a lot of levels. So everybody's like, the next step is to...
Yeah, they're serious about the band.
Right.
I'm assuming it's
the
been
next
that way.
step forever.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't think I want to play the baritone horn anymore. I don't think I want to do music anymore, right? Like that.
Right.
And I stopped.
Okay.
And it was primarily academic, right? But of course, I was a lover of music. I'm hearing calypso, I'm hearing reggae, I'm hearing jazz, I'm
Were you
hearing
hearing
blues.
this
I'm
at
hearing
home?
funk.
Or-
At home
Okay.
on the radio. Osei Chandler was on the air.
Right.
All right. When I was about 12 years old, I saw a show called Night Flight. Now, the old school people will remember that show. This was on the USA Network. It came on late at night on Friday nights, Saturday nights, and they would show things from all around the world. Like they might show a music video. You might see the Police.
I remember that.
You might see
They actually had all kinds of stuff like
all
that
kinds
back
of
in the day. They don't
like
do that
a
anymore.
potpourri, right?
Yeah.
And so this one time, I'm watching Night Flight, and here comes this albino dude at Reggae Sunsplash from 1982, and he's going across the stage, and he's like, it sounds like he's rapping, but he's not really rapping. And it sounds like he's singing, but he's not really singing. It's a melodic, rhythmic rap thing. And I'm like, who is this? And this is amazing. And I want more of that. And it was King Yellowman.
Okay.
That was my introduction to Yellowman. Like, this guy is amazing. And the people were going crazy, right?
Right.
People are losing their minds.
Yeah.
So this is a year after Bob Marley has passed away. Yellowman is the biggest star in reggae music at this time. Okay. So I'm a little kid and I'm like, man, this dude is not, this is good. Then tune into Osei Chandler's show, Roots Music Karama, which has been on the air since 1979.
That's crazy.
Right? So I'm hearing Yellowman. Now I'm hearing this other songs. I'm like, oh, Nobody Move, Nobody Get Hurt. And all these different songs. Zunga, 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 zang.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, this is sick. Yeah. And then I started kind of writing stuff down, like doing my own versions.
What year was that?
This is like 85,
cool. All right.
86. And I had a buddy who happens to be Osei Chandler's son, Zeke. All right. Zeke is also one of the Bows. When he was in that same group.
I met him
at the same time. So Zeke and his little brother Cheo would smuggle music to me. They would get their dad's old records and bring them to my house, and I'd record some of them. I'm recording Yellowman. I'm recording what they call the dance hall style,
right?
Because that's the stuff I gravitated to, the kind of the rap,
energetic,
bouncy, lyrical stuff, and I fell in love with it. But I didn't start performing until like in front of people. I was doing it in the mirror. All through high school and all through
the best audience.
Best audience is the mirror, right?
Standing ovation
with
every
a brush.
time.
Right. When I had hair, I had a brush.
You had a brush?
I had a brush, bro.
I
with the waves.
I used a jump rope because I had a cord.
Oh, you got a cord that way. That's a good deal.
Yes.
That's good thinking.
That's what's up. Yeah. But yeah,
I made a guitar out of a box.
Okay, like Bo Diddley.
Yeah,
Oh, it was just a flat box. Though.
Okay,
There's no sound out of it, man.
But yeah, I mean, I didn't really get out there until like my freshman year of college.
Okay.
As far as performing, getting the guts to actually do it in front of people.
All right, so I was actually kind of leading to why reggae, why
reggae?
So it's kind of
well, you know what? I'm gonna tell you something. I didn't know that I was in love with reggae as early as I was in love with reggae because there was a song called Double Barrel by Dave and Ansel Collins. I didn't know it was a reggae song. My mom had this 45 for the youngsters, and 45 is a small vinyl pressing.
Right.
And it was called Double Barrel. And I used to listen to this song over and over and over. The very well-known sample from that song is the intro, which is, I am the magnificent, right?
Right.
So a lot of people, and the song stuck in my head. I was a little kid. I'm listening to Double Barrel over and over and over. I didn't even know it was reggae. I just liked the way it made me feel, right? And I used to tease Zeke and say all reggae sounds the same. Now now keep in mind now, at home I've got reggae music in my house, but I'm teasing him because I'm like, all music, all that reggae, it's reggae. That's why it's called reggae, because it all has the same beat. And he was like, no, brother, it's not like that. Yeah. But I was messing with him. I was messing with him. But I think that the energy of it, the fact that in one song, like a Stir It Up by Bob Marley, he's talking about making love. And then swings around and says, we'll be forever loving Jah. Okay, so he's praising the creator at the same time, talking about how much he loves his woman. And it just felt human. It just felt real. Like I could connect. It wasn't too out of touch with everybody, and it was the guy on the street.
Not a lot of pretense to it. Not
a lot of pretense. It just felt warm. It felt inviting, and that's what made me fall in love with it. Yeah. And Yellow specifically made me fall in love with it because he was so over the top, boastful. Like a rapper would be, right? Like exaggerating all of the women he's got and all this other stuff. And you know, I'm blessed to be a good friend of his. He's nothing like that for real. You know what I mean?
Oh, we're going to get into Yellow Man.
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
We're going to
I'm saying I just fell in love with reggae music because of the vibe, the energy.
All right. Why jazz, Charlton?
Honestly, I was forced into it.
Okay.
Wow.
Really, I was forced into it. When I left high school, I was one of the top trumpet players in high school. I was all about classical music. And I decided that I wanted to go as far away as I could in order to study music. And I really wanted to be a band director. And there was one college that offered me a very large scholarship. And I talked with my parents, and they were like, all right, let's go. Let's do it. And it was Berklee College of Music. Now, if you go to Berklee College of Music, then you're probably going there to study performance or music production and engineering. That's big there. Songwriting is big there. Film scoring is big there. It's like all of these degrees. They had like 6 or 7 different degrees at the time. And now that I look back on it, you know, and even when I got there, shortly after getting there, I realized that music education, even though it was a degree that you could get, was very kind of low on the totem pole.
This was all about people who wanted to be music professionals outside of
and also there were two things also. If you look at the number of people that were at Berklee, and this is fall of 1989, there was probably about, I don't know, maybe 2,000 students or so, maybe 3,000, if top at that. It was really a small school. Of that, I'd say a good 75% of that number were incoming freshmen. And the graduation rate was really, really small.
Okay.
It might have been
Just washed up.
It might have been 10% or 9 or less.
Wow.
It's very deceptive.
Yeah.
Because the people that go to Berkeley end up leaving school in order to they got a gig someplace.
I see. Right. Actually, I know some people from Berkeley did the same thing. They got there and they were like, it's going to make some money.
Yeah, right. And the running joke was, if you graduate from Berkeley, you're not good.
You're not getting any gigs.
Right. That was kind of a running joke.
Right.
You know, but so I went there. I was there for a semester. I realized that I wanted to be a band director, and the sort of band directing that I had grown up seeing, you know, growing up in the Wando program with Basil Kerr and seeing one of my mentors, Leonard McLeod, over at Burke, who I used to pick the brain of, you know, I call him my band director, even though I didn't go to Burke, but I used to talk to him all the time. But seeing what they did, I was like, that's probably not what I'm going to get at that school. So I decided to transfer, and I ended up at South Carolina State in Orangeburg. And while at South Carolina State, I joined the jazz band. And
what caused you to do that? Did you have to pick that, or? No.
Actually, my plan was going to go to Florida State. And I called Florida State because I had talked with them prior, you know, and they said, well, you missed the deadline to come in the spring in the immediate. So come on down in the fall. We got a spot for you. And I said, fine. Told my parents that, and my mom was like, okay, instead of coming home and just sitting over here or getting a job or whatever and sitting out a semester, why don't you go to South Carolina State, get a couple get some academic courses, and then take those down. You know, I was on campus 3 days and I was like, nope, this is me. This is the spot. Yeah. This is the spot. And I tell people this all the time, you know, Florida State and some other schools, you know, in the Southeast probably, you know, have, you know, more resources, better, you know, just everything about it, larger facilities, all of that stuff, bigger and everything. But you know what? It just felt right at State. The vibe was right. And everything that I do now, I can look back and say I got some experience from that at South Carolina State, and I am forever grateful for that.
That's great.
Forever grateful. So, but being in the jazz band, you know, it was just one of those really crazy things. When I look back at it now and know it, and with the knowledge that I have now about jazz, for a bunch of kids that were like 19 and 20 years old, we were really, really good.
Nice.
Really, really good. We had soloists.
Now, was that just happenstance, or was that like curated by the program?
Well, the instructor at the time when I got there was a gentleman named Dr. Alvin Fulton, and Dr. Fulton knew how to. He just knew how to get the best out of his students.
Oh, okay.
I always laugh because he was my trumpet instructor as well, and he didn't know how to play the trumpet though.
How
exactly how he would say, go get this book, and
but he knew music,
and he knew how it should sound and everything. And we would be in in the lesson, and I would play something for him, and I'd say to myself, I just nailed it, yes, you know, and he'd go, nope, taking it back from the beginning, start it over, you know. And there were so many times I was like, can you please show me, you know, and he couldn't.
Right.
But when I go back and look at it now, as someone that has been playing for a long time and been an educator and been in other conferences and seeing other directors and people that are masters at the instrument, I was like, you know what, Dr. Fulton was right. Gosh, you know, but
age will bring that to you sometimes. I know for a fact.
Right. But one of the things that Dr. Fulton did was he said, can you improvise? And I said, nope. And he said, you just came from Berklee College of Music. I was like, yep, deceptive, isn't it? Right. You know, but I do not know the first thing about improvisation. And he said, I want you to scrape together as much little bit of cash as you can. I know you're in college and everything, but I want you to go to the mall and go to Music Land.
Music Land.
Flashback.
Yeah. He said, go to Music Land and get as many blank cassettes as you can and bring them back to me.
Nice.
And when I brought them back to him, he took them, and the next lesson that we had, he came in and he gave me all of these tapes, and it basically had songs by Dizzy Gillespie, Clifford Brown, Harry Sweets Edison, Lee Morgan, Miles Davis, and he said, you are going to learn all of these note for note.
Oh my goodness.
and that
He was not playing around.
Right. And that was my introduction.
Yeah.
And so for the first 2 years, or my freshman and sophomore year at South Carolina State, like I said, we had this amazing band, and we had soloists in the trumpet section. And at the start of my junior year, 90% of the band graduated, and we got a new director. And the new director came in and said, "You're the upperclassman. You're a junior, and you got 4 other freshman trumpet players. So anytime we solo, you're going to have to take the solo." And I said, "Well, I can't solo." And he was like, "I don't care. Go out there and solo." And so I got thrown into it, and that was the beginning.
Sink or swim.
Learn by doing. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then when I graduated, and I still was kind of about it, but then I met a couple of buddies of mine now, Quentin Baxter and Kevin Hamilton, who's in the band Ranky Tango with me. But I met them when they were finishing up their degrees, and Quentin introduced me, again, by fire. He invited me to come to watch this gentleman by the name of Oscar Rivers play. And Oscar was playing every Monday night at a place called the Chef and Clef here in Charleston at the time. And it was Oscar Rivers, it was the late Tommy Gill on piano, it was Wayne Mitchum on bass, and Quentin. And Oscar is from the school of bebop. And so, from that point on, between Oscar Rivers, George Kinney, and Lonnie Hamilton, those 3 gentlemen, those are the gentlemen that became my mentors. And they would basically say, "You need to come to this gig, and you need to just sit over there in the corner and watch." And in some cases, they would tell the owner, he was like, "Okay, I know this kid right over here. He is not 21 years old, but I got him. He's going to sit right there over in the corner, and he's just going to observe." This is almost like, bring your kid to work day, And so that's how I got into it. But literally thrown in.
Right.
And between that and just hanging around Quentin and Kevin, who were miles ahead of me with regards to their studying of jazz. I didn't really know anything about jazz until I got to college and started learning names of people and everything. But that was it.
So that kind of like underpinned the beginning of Ranky Tanky? Is that what this?
Yes and no. It's a crazy story about how we all met and how we all played in different configurations as a band. Quentin, Kevin, and I were a band first. We called ourselves Two Heads and a Dread because of Quentin and his dreadlocks. He was just starting, And so there was that, and then we used to play at this coffee house every Sunday, and we just started noticing this young man that came walking in, and he would always marvel about how we would play a song and finish it. And then Quentin would look over at me and he said, "Hey, play it like First Sunday church choir walking in." And then we jump back into it and switch the style. And this young man, he just started, really kind of bugging us to play with, him. And his name is Clay Ross.
Okay.
And so then the 4 of us had a band called the Gradual Lean, and we would play at Mezzanine every Tuesday night. That was like 2000 or so, 2000 to 2001. And then back up, when Quentin was the drummer for this show called Serenade that used to be in the Charleston Music Hall, a lot of the cast would come over to our apartment. The 2 of us had an apartment over in Mount Pleasant. And so I would meet the cast. And one day, there's a bunch of young ladies from the cast came over, and they were all everybody was hanging out. But one of them was this little girl. She was like 15 years old, and her name was Kiana Parler. Yes. And that's when I met Kiana. So that was like 95 when I met Kiana.
So you guys have been friends for a long time.
We have been friends for close to 30 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
So when people think about Ranky Tanky and see that we just started up
that's
in
kind of
26,
what I was going to with that.
when we're like, nah, our relationship as a family goes back way, way longer. And Clay came up technically with the idea. He was like, "Look, I've been traveling around the world. I've been playing with all of these Brazilian world artists and percussionists and stuff, and I'm playing in Brazil and I'm playing over in this country, and I'm hearing all of these beats and everything, and I'm like, man, that sounds like Quentin on Sunday right there. And he would call us back and he would say, yo, I was just in this town, in this country, and they were playing this. And Quentin would be like, oh, yeah, that's this style. They accented on this instead of on this where we are, you know. And so Clay was like, look, nobody's doing a contemporary version of Gullah. Why not us?
Yeah.
And so that's how we started it.
So I want to get into that more too, actually, if that's all right. So could you explain the sound of the Gullah music sound?
It all starts with the rhythm.
Okay.
The rhythm that you hear, which if you're just, it's one measure long, 4 beats. So if you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the way Quentin talks about it, if you write it out, it looks very simple, but there's a certain lilt. That's his word. There's a certain lilt about it that makes it very complex. There's a certain feel about it.
Right.
There's a feel about it. And you can trace Gullah back many, 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 many years. You can go all the way back to 1700s. You know, this is definitely Western African.
Right.
There's no mistaking about it. Yeah. So much so that... you know, it took us a while for everybody in the industry in order to understand exactly what Gullah is. The farther we get away from Charleston and the Gullah Geechee corridor, we have to remind people or inform them just what it is. And a good portion of the time, they're like, oh, that makes sense. You know, so, you know, truth be told, you know, Gullah is an informant to so many different popular music styles, whether it's country music, bluegrass, folk, gospel, spirituals, jazz. You definitely can find traces of Gullah in all of that. And if you think about it, Gullah came before all, just timeline wise.
Yeah.
You know, so that's definitely. The nucleus of it definitely centers around the rhythm. And if you think about it, and just sit and really rationally think about it, about how the music spreads and how a lot of things spread. You know, everybody talks about it. Everything goes from east to west.
Yeah.
You know, music down in the South, it goes out west, you know, and, you know, if you listen to folk songs, bluegrass songs, a lot of those songs are based off of gospels or spirituals, which are based off of Gullah chants and Gullah, you know, songs and things like that. And there's so many other things aside from music that you know the world has experienced that's Gullah. You know, we were in Finland
without knowing it.
Without knowing it, they just don't know the root of it. You know, like
so you guys kind of you guys are taking the role of ambassadors in a way.
Definitely.
Is that something that you enjoy doing?
Absolutely. Okay. I love when I see the light bulb come on.
Right.
You know, when I'm standing there on the stage and I'm telling them about how I ask, you know, how many people know what Gullah is, and they're all just sort of looking at me, you know, maybe one or two, you know, and I say these words. I said, I guarantee you have come into contact with something Gullah in your life. You just didn't know the root of it, you know. And then I say, how many of you all have ever sung probably the most famous Gullah song on the face of the earth?
Yeah.
Kumbaya.
Right.
And they're all like, ah. Or
I'm saying that right now.
Yeah. I saw. Yeah.
You're like, he's
or
good.
you know, or you've played one of these hand games that people refer to as patty cake.
Right.
You know, that's a unique kids Gullah game, you know, or you do, or you eat shrimp and grits, or you've seen sweetgrass baskets, or you know, any of these stuff, and it's not really a big secret. You've got a lot of people that have covered Gullah songs. Everybody from the Rolling Stones to Little Feat to, I mean, just a ton of people have covered Gullah songs. You know, there was a lady, Bessie Jones, who was probably the biggest Gullah superstar, if you will, but she was a main draw for a lot of folk music festivals.
Right.
Yeah.
And so naturally it would cross over. You know, our first year in Ranky Tanky, we used to perform a song called Oh Death. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, I know. Oh, Death from Old Brother, Where Art Thou? Oh, yeah, that's a great folk song. Let me hip you on that.
Yeah.
You know, Old Death
doesn't
is
even
Gullah.
really sound like an old folk song, really, though.
You know,
I mean,
think about that.
you can
Old
hear
Death,
it.
won't you spare me over for another year? You know,
I get that.
that's just, you know, so yeah.
Interesting. You give me a lot to ponder later. Let's go and look to my records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's pass it over to Mr. Ellington here.
Yes.
A little bit about the dub plates. I know you guys, when I first moved to town, dub plates, I've been hearing about the dub plates since I came to Charleston.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about how that got started? And
It started with a young man by the name of Brady Wagner. And Brady Wagner is, I tease him and say he looks like Donny Osmond, right? Because he's like Donny Osmond, but
I had never heard you say that, but I know Brady, yes.
Yeah,
Right?
that's him.
Totally Donny Osmond. But it was actually.
He's got a good smile.
He's got a beautiful smile.
Great smile. Great.
So Osei Chandler is the person that told me about it. He's like, hey, there's this white guy, right? And he does this one man thing. He's doing reggae. You should meet him, right? Okay. So I go out and I hear this white guy that's doing the one man reggae thing. I'm like, oh, okay, this dude is good, right? And then he started another band called the Italics. Right. So he had a band called the Italics. And then they asked me to come up and do some songs with them. I came up, I performed because I knew all the guys in some way or another. And then
What year was this?
This would be, this is around before I got hitched. So I'd say around early 2000, maybe 2002, 2003, around that time. And then that entity broke up. Right. So then Brady decided he wanted to do the Jamaican sound system style thing where you're not using a band, but you got turntables like a.
See, that's what I remember hearing when I came to town.
Okay, Dub Island sound system.
Exactly. That's
right.
it. Yep.
So it was Dub Island sound system with the same concept that Jamaicans were doing in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where you just have some big speakers, turntables, and we'd pass the mic around, right? Just like hip hop started doing, right? So that's what Dub Island was. Well, Brady is still a musician at heart, right? So he was like, maybe we should do a band again, and we'll call it the Dub Plates. Now, a lot of people don't know what a dub plate is, but for the people that aren't familiar with dance hall culture, a dub plate is like a special record. So if I've got my sound system and I'm playing against Charlton sound system, the Papa Robbie sound system, the Ranky Tanky sound system, I'll have one of my favorite artists like Dennis Brown or Gregory Isaacs do a song and say my name in the song. There's only one version of this. It's acetate. Nobody else has a copy. Oh. So it's a dub plate. It's special. It's extra. So I play this and I'm in a clash with the Ranky Tanky sound, and I play this song and the crowd is in the middle. He's on one side of the room, I'm on the other side of the room, and we play music. It's a sound clash. Then he turns around and he pulls out a dub plate with Whitney Houston singing about the Ranky Tanky sound, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, he got Whitney Houston to... So that dub plate is a very special thing. So when people are like, well, why do you call yourself the Dub Plates? Because we're special.
That's right. That's
we're
right.
unique.
That's
right.
Sure.
So he brought together like all these different personalities and all these different styles and flavors. And, I was doing my own thing. I was, I had backup bands and I was doing just the Papa Robbie thing. And he was like, hey, come on, let's do the Dub Plates.
You were doing
thing.
some of that in college, right?
I was doing that in college.
Columbia? You were up in
Columbia. I was at the University of South Carolina.
Okay, right.
And my original band was a band called Razor, right? I was in the Razor Posse, right? So I was in the Razor Posse. People don't say posse anymore, right?
They should, though.
Bring it back.
Let's bring it back. Yeah, that's a good one.
But I was in the Razor Posse, and that was my first band. But then, that ran its course, and I came back home. That was in Richmond, Virginia. I did that from 94 till about 96. And then I came back home, and then it was just Papa Robbie. And for a while, I was like, I don't want to do that right now, because I was kind of burned out with the band stuff and on the road. Right. And a bass player, Ross Bongi, came to me and said, hey, Robbie, we'll back you. You can do a whole show by yourself. I had never thought about doing a whole show by myself. I was used to being a part of a bigger group where we took turns. And I was like, ooh, do I have enough material to do stuff by myself? And I'm like, well, maybe I do. And so for a long time, I was just doing my own thing. And then, meeting Brady and his brain he's all over the place. He's amazing, right? Brilliant cat. So he came up with these ideas and he's like, well, let's do this song. And we do that. And it just worked. And I think the dub plates thing, I'm not sure if it was supposed to last as long as it has. Yeah. I think initially it was like, and that's around 2010, right?
If that's how things work.
Hey, y'all boy busy tomorrow.
Just like, what? And it just worked, man. Big Hair, Brady, myself, Yak, Ryan, Andy, Patrick, like all these guys just bring their own energy to it, and we still kicking.
Yeah,
it ain't dead.
You guys had an album come out a couple years ago. It was on the billboards, wasn't it?
It was on Billboard, #1 Billboard chart. That was Box Full of Steel.
Box Full of Steel,
and that goes back to the dance hall thing because people are like, well, what does that mean? Why is it Box Full of Steel? Well, usually if a person has an amazing sound system, their box full of records, they call it steel.
Okay.
Like,
right.
weapons.
Protected. Yeah.
Right. These are my weapons.
Sure.
You can't fight my music. My music is my weapon. So we ended up doing Box Full of Steel. And of course, the lead song off of that was Real quick story about how came about. I'm sitting at home, chilling. I get a phone call. Who is on the other end? It's Yellow Man. Yellow Man's like, yo, Robbie, may I have to do a song with you now? May I have to do a song with you? I'm like, okay.
So he calls you up.
He calls me. Yeah, just blatant.
Nice. The guy who got you into all this calls you up and says, let's do a song.
We got to do a song together. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
Wait a minute, where's this coming from? Because he would always say it. Like we were open for him. We do shows. We talk. He's like, yeah, man, may I have to do a song? Well, where's this coming from? And he said, the next sentence was, we have to do a song before I go to heaven. Now, I'm thinking this man has battled cancer.
Right.
This man has been, like, they told him he had 6 months to live back in 1986. And at this point, it was 2014. And he's like, yeah, we have to do a song before I go to heaven. So I'm thinking in the back of my mind, okay, he might be sick.
Right, he knows something's up.
He knows something's up. He's going through something. Let's do this song as quick as we can. And so Brady and Big Hair worked it out. We ended up doing a show up in Cape Hatteras. And we got a hotel room and a suite. And then we had put the stuff up. And we got the little booth. And I told Yellow, I said, right.
Remote.
I say, yo, Yellow, he's like, what's the song? He asked me, what's the song? I'm like, well, okay, the song is called and this is the hook, and then we just talking trash. Basically, we're just doing like it was 1982.
Yeah.
Like we just do. And he was like, yeah, man, good. So he goes in the booth, he puts the headphones on, but I'm standing outside. He's like, Robbie, you have to come. So I'm like, I've already done my part. Why does he want me in there? It was vibes. I had to stand. He wanted me to stand next to him so he could get the energy.
Oh, good.
And I was like, wow, okay.
It's a guy who knows what he needs.
He knows what he needs. So I'm standing there, and as he's doing the song, he's hitting me. And he's hitting me, and he's dropping his lyrics, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is unreal. And I got a quick picture of him doing it, but it was just like I was just in the moment, like this is full circle.
Yeah.
Because I watched this kid, I watched him as a kid. I'm actually doing it wasn't just opening for him, and you know what I mean, and doing a tour. Yeah. I'm in the booth with King Yellow Man.
Yeah.
Doing a song.
I'm in the booth with my guy. With this my dude.
This my dude.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and people have asked me, well, is there anything else you'd like to do with your music? I'm done. Like, I don't need nothing else. Like, I still want to perform.
Right.
I'll never retire. Off the air, Hop and I had a little conversation about retiring because he hit 50 and he's like, I'm like an old Calypsonian.
Yeah.
I'm an old blues man. When I stop breathing,
That's when it's
I'll retire.
I got you.
Then it's over.
I like hearing all this.
Yeah,
It's
so-
building me up.
Yeah.
Yellow Man is 67 years old. His
Wow.
voice isn't what it was, but his body is in amazing shape, and he can run back and
That's what I
forth
was
for
saying.
2
I've
hours.
seen this recently on YouTube. It's doing the
He's
job,
not
man. Yeah.
slowing down. And when his heartbeat stops is when the music stops. And that's how I feel about that, right? So the dub plates, I mean, he gave us that energy on that song. It was mind-blowing.
It's a great song.
And he charged us nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. Because
That's awesome.
that was, yeah, man, Robbie, yeah, me love you. Me love you.
That's cool.
That's it. And I was like, you sure you don't want, like, he's, no, man, we're good. What? You mean you go just do this and you...
So what does he think of the song?
He loves the song.
Nice. That's great.
When Brady did the video for the song,
Which is also great.
which is
So he did that whole video
he did that
himself.
video.
Nice.
Brady did the song, but the video.
Yeah.
Brady is
Yeah, I know
an
he's got
Einstein.
he's got a lot going on for sure.
Yellow Man must have shared that video 3 times a day on his page.
Okay.
Like, you know how you get the video and then like 2,000 people like it. Yellow will share it again because he was like he
He's
was
hyped about
feeling
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was feeling it. So, yeah, man, that was a life impacting that. Like, that's it. I'm good. Like, I don't need nothing else.
quick. We had known each other from 88, 89 or
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
But I never knew
That I
that
was-
you were doing this
Right.
until Yellow Man was playing at it was at Acme at the time?
Acme, yeah.
Yeah, it was Acme. And you and a couple of other couple other artists
Got on stage.
and y'all were doing y'all's thing before Yellow Man.
Yeah.
And you walked out and I was like, oh yeah, I know that. And then you just started going, and
That's
and
my alter ego.
Yeah, and
Right.
you were just going, and I was like, all right.
So you never heard him?
He
No,
never, yeah.
no.
Okay.
So
No.
That's what I was saying. Like, our musical paths didn't cross
Right.
until much later. We
Yeah.
knew each other. But our musical paths crossed much later, where
Right,
we were
right,
actually on
right,
stage
right,
at the
right.
same time
Yeah,
and
yeah.
doing things. But yeah, I mean, we always knew Charlton was this very gifted musician, and I was just a dude that talked a lot of trash and got into arguments a lot. You know what I mean? Like,
No way.
Facts.
I follow him on Facebook. I love it, by the way. I love it.
Thank you.
We agree.
Right.
Yeah, we agree.
You know, and sometimes back then, I used to think that he would take the opposite point just
to piss people off?
just to debate with
mean,
us,
yeah,
just
right.
because.
Are correct, sir. You are correct.
You know,
You are correct.
Hey,
Because I mean, it
all
was
training,
fun. It was training. It was
apparently.
fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
It was
That's right,
fun.
right.
But yeah,
People don't argue like they used to anymore. People get mad now.
they take it personally.
Right.
Yeah,
Personal.
yeah.
People
Yeah.
I'm the old
Yeah,
the
we're
way
just
too.
jousting. We're
Yeah.
going back and forth.
We're just working out.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just working out what you think.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, you're not
yes.
really convincing people a lot of times. You're just
Right.
working on your own.
Working on your own
frame of
stuff.
mind, yeah.
But yeah, that was the first time that I'd seen you perform, and it was the first time that I'd seen Yellow Man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The king.
Yeah, the king. And then afterward, you told me your story.
Okay.
And I was like, there it is right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that'd be a good time for us to listen to that song now.
All right.
Go listen to it.
This is Papa Robbie.
Yo, this is King Yagaman.
My name Daddy Brady, gal and baby.
Here, watch the man tell some selector guys with a fear.
I am the man them called Papa Robbie. Me born and me grow down at Chucktown City. Me ram dance all from 1990. A real general, nobody try test me. Me a chocolate chip, the woman love me. Me start ride the rhythm and them in a frenzy. In the patois, Gullah and Geechee. Me a vibes master, King Yellow teach me. Me know how to chat, me know how to speak. If you not call, we your party incomplete. Pretty lady rhythm, big hero mix it. King Yellow dub plates, we ever ready.
and everyone. With a white man, or black man, all nation, King Yellow Man. Tell you this a music that a ram obsession. Play this a one for the radio station. This a song of the #1. Everybody know this a champion. King Yellow Man with the mic in a hand. Big up all of the Rasta man. Tell the Yellow Man come with ram obsession. King Yellow me them Danny Brady. 37 years now, some of you all are crazy.
Maybe let's really feel the king of dance. All the real king, me not chat about the man made it.
I mean no chat disrespectfully.
But when it comes to reggae royalty,
Rain stand fast around the king of dance. And no whip, no boat, no flipping me a beat.
imitated by everyone from Run DMC to KRS-One all the way to Easy. Zungo, zungo, go zungo, zang. The style imitated by Butupac and Biggie.
Most of them granny, them call it 1, 2, 3. Not the holy parties if you flipping ask me. Every mic MC we ever damn Grammy. Oh, King Yellow Man, that them loyalty.
When it come to dance, I yellow one true king. Any artist that's name my nigga kiss yellow ring. Zunga zunga yeba zaga za no never yellow start everything I stop tiring. Yellow low cheese, no crowd in my please. American, Jamaican, Bundy, Chinese. Me no want it sound black, me no want it sound white. Me want it sound yellow every ras clap night. Just so you know, be care book the show. Set the sound, set the light everywhere that we go. Be care, respect, man, right, no check. This is just beginning, I mean not start yet.
And we're back.
All right.
All right.
You better believe it.
So, how would you guys describe your creative process to people who are out there thinking about how they're going to? Is it something you can strengthen? Is it something you can work on?
I think.
What do you do?
I can always strengthen it, but I remember Sam Cooke in an interview when they're asking him, "How you come up with songs?" He was like, "Observation, baby." Observation. And so a lot of my things that I come up with have everything to do with what I see. Even if it's political, I try to dress it up in such a way that some people may not recognize it. I like to put the medicine in the applesauce.
Okay.
So you're like, oh, that's okay, that's catchy. But some people that are really paying attention hear what I'm saying. Right. I'm not as overt with some of my messaging on purpose, right? But I try to just jot down things I see.
Keep a notebook, or do you do it on your phone? Or
I used to keep an actual notebook. Now I use my notes in my phone.
Right. I do too.
I use my notes so I can always refer to it. And the Hold 'Em in the Road song, I have, we have a song called Hold 'Em in the Road. That's something we've been hearing ever since we were children. Yeah. Like, keep it together. You know what I'm saying? So hold 'em in the road, boy. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, nobody's ever just done a song. That's a hook. Why not? Yeah. And there's still an idea that I may not share right here, but I have an idea of making an entire song, and Ranky Tanky has done pieces of this, but I want to do a whole song dedicated to the Low Country Clap.
Oh, yeah.
Not just using the Low Country Clap, but dedicating the whole song is about the journey, connecting the dots from West Africa through the Caribbean all the way to here. Wow. Because that one rhythm that I heard growing up that also connected me to reggae and dancehall specifically was the breakdown in the live music.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And my granny would sit and she'd hit the chair like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Singing songs. And I'm like, and then I listen to the live dance hall and I hear the breakdown and, and my mom would go, what's going on that? Are they in church? No, they're at a club and they're doing dance hall. It's all connected. Like that connecting the dots across the diaspora. That's what Ranky Tanky's doing. That's what I do where I am. Like, I try to connect those dots when I'm hosting a podcast or I'm hosting Roots Music Karamu. I'm connecting the dots. I'm playing West African music, Caribbean music, down low country music. I'm playing Ranky Tanky. I want people to hear all of the similarities, because some people, even if you don't have a trained ear, there's certain things you can just hear.
Yeah,
you just recognize. You can feel it.
Yeah.
You can recognize it. So, yeah, my whole process for creating is all about observation and things. I don't get in my head too much and try to get too deep. The best songs I write are the ones that take me 15, 20 minutes with the lyrics. You know what I mean? Like, simple. Yeah. Keep it simple, stupid.
Okay. What kinds of things influence you besides music? I mean, outside of, like, for me, I like to look at paintings sometimes. I mean, I don't know. I've taught literature before where I teach writing that way. It's like sometimes it's easier for just show someone, like, this is what tone looks like, as opposed to explaining it, forever.
Besides music, I'm reading several
books. Okay.
Like, I have a song called "The Lesson." That's after reading African contributions to American civilization. Like, Hannibal. Who's that? Oh, what's this? Oh, Cleopatra. We got Hannibal. We got Marcus Garvey. And I'm throwing all of these things out, and the song is called "The Lesson," but. And I was only, when I wrote that, I might have been 22 years old. And I'm still doing the song because my sister is like, you can't ever stop doing that song. Because no matter where we are in history or how long, if I'm 80 years old and I'm still able to, I should still do that song, because a lot of people still don't know who those people are.
Okay,
I'm talking,
I want to back up on that just 1 second.
Sure.
So do you ever feel like, maybe that's a job that you've taken onto yourself, since you say you're never going to be able to stop doing the song, right?
Right.
I mean, what do you think about the next generation? Do they got to pick up the song, or do they got to, where does it end? Does it ever end?
They do it the way they do it. But I hope that it continues in some way. I don't expect that song to continue.
Sure, well,
I know what you're saying. Yeah. But I feel like it should continue. It'd be fantastic if we had more rhythmic griots that were on the planet, that were spreading that information and vibe. But that's what I feel like. When you asked me, when you said I've taken it on, and I have.
So it's a responsibility.
Yes, a responsibility because of the things that I was saying. There was a brief period early on where I was behaving on stage more like Shabba. And Shabba Ranks was... And by the way, I got
your mama didn't know that.
My mama didn't know. My mama didn't know because I was away from home.
Oh, okay.
I was in Virginia.
You're safe,
right? I was safe. It wasn't
Mark
ridiculous.
Safe for mother.
But it was kind of raunchy, right? It was kind of raunchy, but not like over the top, right? And by the way, my stage name, Papa Robbie, was given to me by Shabba Ranks.
Okay.
Right. So I met Shabba Ranks back in 1991. He was doing a show at the King Street Palace. I got to meet him at it was Manifest back then.
Oh, Manifest.
Right. Now it's Monster Music, but it was a Manifest. And he signed my autograph, and he was like, "What your name?" And I was like, "Robbie." He's like, "Oh, Papa." And he signed Papa Robbie. I was wearing like overalls, and it's 1991. People were.
We all had things.
We all had our things. So he signed it to Pop, and I was like, Papa Robbie. Okay, I'll keep that. That's mine, right? So I'm Papa Robbie, but I was doing these songs because I also thought that because Yellow was doing the same sort of thing, but differently. Shabba was more upfront with a lot of the content, right? Yeah. So some of the stuff was kind of explicit. And I did that for a little while, but then the rest of the band was like, Robbie, that doesn't fit what we're doing overall. Right. And then I thought about it. I want my mama and my daddy, and if children are around, to be able to watch this and not go, ooh, I don't know about that. Right. And I made that decision at like 22, 23. Like, okay, that's enough of that. I got that out of my system. Let's just do it the way.
So you want to engage with as many people as possible.
Exactly. So I want the babies to be able to bounce to it.
Okay. Well, let's move over to Charlton then. Backing up to the creative process. I know that you've got a lot of albums. You've written a lot of songs. what are some things that you do to kind of get yourself into that creative space?
Well, my mind is constantly going, and I'm constantly figuring something music related with it. For example, when I lived in Mount Pleasant and I would have to drive over the Mark Clark Bridge, or 526, there's a section where you can hear, your tires hitting the and I would get that rhythm and something would pop into my brain. Now, before we had smartphones like we do now that have voice memos and everything, I would call my house and I would leave a message
on your machine?
On the machine.
That's awesome.
And actually one time Quentin, the first time that happened, Quentin was like, bruh, what's this? Because I was like, on the message, I'm trying to recall everything so I don't, and
Right.
paint the picture. So I'm like, okay, I'm going over the Blue Bridge. It's kind of cloudy out right now. I got this melody going. Here's the beat. Here's this, blah, blah, blah. And my thinking is I'm going to come back to it. Or at least I'm going to give every adjective and describe what's going on right now, because if I don't write it down or if I don't develop it right at that second and I start getting into something else, it's going to be gone later.
Right.
So those other details that are kind of,
that just helps.
Pardon me if I'm mistaken, but you write mostly instrumental music, correct?
The majority, yes.
Majority of it. So is that kind of important? I mean, like the details for the people who are listening. That
yes, for me, it just helps me to remember what frame of mind and what space I was in at that particular time. And I would sing whatever was, happening in my brain, whatever I was thinking. And that still happens a lot. Sometimes I could, hear something outside, hear a bird or whatever have you, do something, hear somebody's lawnmower. And it varies. There's a lot of songs that I've written, a lot of my jazz tunes where I have had Quentin and Kevin in mind, because I've played with them the longest probably, and I know their personalities and I hear them all the time. And sometimes I'll get a melody and I'll go back, you know what? That little beat that Quentin was playing would fit right on, perfectly with this. Or, Kevin was just in sound check doing this bass line or whatever. He was just warming up, but he played two notes that just stuck with me or whatever have you. And sometimes I'll develop it like that. So I've got this song, I was cutting the yard and I'm pushing the lawnmower and I have my headphones on and I'm listening to another podcast or something like that. And this scent just kind of, came across. And I was like, man, I live way up here in North Charleston, but that sure does sound like, or smell like, like out at the beach or something like that. That's a heck of a breeze in order to come all the way up there.
Right. Yeah.
And so shortly after that, I just got this idea and I was like, okay, get it down right now. So I let the lawnmower, stop, left it in the middle of the yard. I ran in the house and I played this song on my phone, or I played it on the piano and sang the melody. And it ended up being this song called Sea Breeze. And so I'm not really good with the production part. And I knew that the song was going to be more on the contemporary side, which Quentin and Kevin and a lot of other my friends that I would normally play with can play. But there's some other people that I know that I would probably call in order to get the flavor of it, And so I took that little demo and I sent it to two of my former middle school band students, because I ended up being a band director for a little while, and I sent it to them because they were good at production, and it's just me singing on the, singing and playing the piano, and they flipped it and basically just called me up and said, yeah, all right, man, just meet me at the studio and bring your horn. And so that's kind of how the creative processes that I use. Then there are other times where I will definitely write out everything, and I'll say, okay, here's the sketch. This is what I want you to play in the beginning. Now, how we develop it and how it ends up is according to their personality.
Right.
But in the beginning, I started off with something that they probably don't even know that they gave to me, in my thought process, but, I could look at Kevin, I was like, you were doing this thing, man, one day, and it came out like this, and this is what he said, I played this, and he would look at it, and he would look at the notes, and he said, I played this, and I was like, absolutely. I have an intro of one song, and it starts off with a bass line that Kevin did, or a piece of a solo. It's like 2 bars long. It's less than 5 seconds, but that was the intro, and that was a part of a solo that he did, and I was just like, right there. Right.
Cool.
It's sort of, if you think about it in a funny kind of way, it could be sampling.
That's exactly where I was about. I was there.
Yeah.
Have you ever listened to Michaela McCraven? He's a drummer. He does that actually. Okay. He goes into the studio with these musicians, and they improvise. And he goes back through all the tapes and then just recuts it all up.
Prince.
And then
Prince.
And then he hires the musicians who improvised to come back and learn the song that he just
right. Yeah.
So they'll play it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
But I mean, now part of that, I'm thinking that who better to get than the people that were playing those grooves or whatever have you unconsciously, to develop, what you've put down. It's partly theirs, but at the same time, it's really a luxury for me when I have musicians, that I know and have played with, and they can, kickstart so many things for me.
Right.
I can come up with my own ideas easily, and then when I give it to them, they put something else on it.
Flesh it out.
They flesh it out,
So
or
you
they
leave
add
that space. You leave that space for everybody.
Totally. You got to leave space like that, because it's just like when you hear people say, well, I've got another set of eyes to look this over, or I got another set of ears to listen to this, and how they can, they're almost like producers, when you give it to them, maybe you should do it this way. There's a part of a lot of the songs where Calvin Baxter, professionally known as Nivlak.
Yes,
Nivlak.
Yes.
Calvin backwards.
And I thought that was his name at first too. Wow, that's a mouthful there.
Calvin Baxter, Nivlak Retzab, and Demetrius Doctor. They've come back and they have they are very gifted, and they would play it like I wrote it, or something like that, and then there'd be something a little extra, and I was like, would you come up with that? And he was like, oh, we just reharmonize it a little bit, that's it, or we added this beat instead of that one right there, we switched it to this, or we why don't you modulate up a half step right here, why don't you do this, and they become the producers in it.
So how are you working with these tracks then? Are you like passing them back and forth online and working on separate studios, or are you working in one studio together, or?
Well, with those two, usually I would have the song, and I would just send it to them, and they would come back with everything all done. They would, like he would just Calvin would, the majority of the time, we would say, I'm cutting drums on this, or I'm we've put this on here now, and he'll send it to me, and he'll say, what you think? There have been some times where we've done things live where I've had a full band in the studio.
Like your Grammy-winning album, right?
Oh, yeah.
Slide that in there for you. That would be one example of that.
But the majority of the time when I work with Calvin and Demetrius, I'll just send them an idea or something like that, and they'll run with it. And as a matter of fact, quick plug, when you go to the International African American Museum that's in Charleston, South Carolina, and you get upstairs to where they have the just wide open space when you walk in, there are these huge panels that sort of line the little sort of half kind of hallway if you walk straight, and it has this massive video that's playing, and the video is called Transatlantic, but it basically starts off with this guy playing a kora, you know, and it takes you from way back then all the way up to the present. Myself, Calvin, and Demetrius, we did the music for that.
That's cool.
And it started off with, okay, we need to make sure that we line up what we're watching, you know. So it was like film scoring, basically. Line up what you're watching, you know. And I was like, okay, that part right there, you know, that's kind of the wartime. So you know, we're gonna write a funky little thing, because back then during the war, a lot of times they just heard fife and drum. So we're gonna do a funky little, you know, fife and drum. Here's a melody on that. All right, I got that. All right, we're gonna switch that right there, you know. And so it just develops like that. And yeah, you can pass it back and forth, but for them, they're more of the production. You know, I do a lot of I like this melody, or I came up with this melody. Demetrius will get it.
You're coming out with the seed,
yeah,
and then they're kind of working with that.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. They're definitely. I'd say actually, I'd go even as far as that they're way more creative, you know, at it than I am. They do this every day.
So are you James Brown and they're Fred Wesley? And
I wouldn't go
Pee-wee?
that far.
They're not Pee Wee and Fred.
I won't go that far.
No, okay.
Go ahead.
I wouldn't go that far. You know.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, you mean like this? Boom. Yeah,
That's exactly right.
Just like I said it. Just like I wrote it.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
It's facts.
Right? I heard.
It's facts. Just like I thought about it.
Well, I think it might be a good time to listen to Sea Breeze, the song you're talking about, and we'll just take a listen to that, and then we'll come back.
How'd you get that? you know, and Bootsy said, he was like, now I don't want you to think that he was totally incompetent.
Right.
You know, he knew what he wanted. He knew what it sounded like.
Yeah.
He wasn't really that good on playing it for you or telling it to you, but once he heard it, he would be like, yeah, that's it right there.
Right.
And
he understood the concept.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know who else was kind of like that, and definitely not as abrasive as James or anything, but Count Basie. Count Basie had a lot of people writing songs for the band.
Okay.
And they are credited with it and everything. Yeah. But Basie would come in and say, all right, let's take this and do it this way or whatever have you. So he did a lot of minute arranging for a lot of people's stuff that the band would end up playing. There's a song called Lil Darlin' that they do. It's one of the Basie standards. And this guy Neil Hefti, who is one of the best arrangers in the world. People probably don't know him by name, but he wrote a lot of great songs for people. Yeah. One of his most popular songs was actually the theme from Batman.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. And he's mad. He would say it would say music by Neil Hefti. It should say music and words. One Batman. But anyway, so he wrote this song Lil Darlin', and Lil Darlin', they got the music, and he said, all right, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. They get like halfway through it, and Basie stops the band, and he was like, you know what? Let's switch it up a little bit. Take it this speed. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2. It's probably one of the most elegant. They never played it fast. They played it fast once.
And he heard that in the song,
and he was just like, you know what? Let's try it this way.
Yeah.
And dropped that song from 90 miles an hour down to 10. Yeah.
And
it is a classic.
Yeah. It would be very typical sounding the other way for sure.
Right. It reminds me when you talk about that process and how people, George Clinton comes to mind because George Clinton would say to Eddie Hazel, hey, play like your mom just died and we got maggot brain.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
Right.
George can't play the guitar.
Right.
George can't play the keys.
Right.
George knows.
There's a lot of people that do that. Wynton Marsalis had this thing with his saxophonist. Yeah. And he had an alto player and a tenor player.
Yeah.
And he said, all right, it's a duet. It's a love story. All right, Wes, you gonna be the girl. And you gonna be the dude, and y'all are gonna have that conversation like that.
Yeah.
And that's how it comes out. And sometimes if you have good enough musicians, I mean, y'all know, you have good enough musicians, you can just paint a picture to them and say, this is what we're going through right now, play, go.
Yep.
Which kind of comes back to that question I was asking earlier about things that kind of inspire you that aren't musical. Yeah. That's not really musical, but it is.
Right, it is.
Like framing something in the context of a relationship. It's understandable still.
Right.
It's definitely drives the point home that like a lot of notes and paper can't do.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, by the way, we're back.
All right, we're back.
Yes.
But I'm not going to deprive any of the listeners of that conversation. So absolutely.
Yeah.
We are at the part of the show where I like to let the guests from previous shows ask the current guests some questions.
I have a question.
Please.
Do the previous guests know the new guests?
Yes.
Oh.
They do. But you don't know. They do. Now, I don't know if you know them. I mean, I'm not sure how. I mean, Charleston's a small town.
Yeah.
I know that you know. I think you know the guy who's asking question for you, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
This question is for Papa Robbie. My name is Andy Greenberg, and a big fan of your work. I wanted to ask you, conceptually as an artist, what would you say is your biggest underlying message that you're trying to communicate with the audience and with your fellow musicians by your artistic personality and your artistic content that you provide?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whew. That's a great question.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Musicians ask other musicians great questions. They're not going to ask you your favorite color. They're going to go for the throat.
Oh, man. The message that I'm trying to convey, the underlying message is that there is a message in my music. There's the way that the music is arranged is purposely warm. There's nothing really I don't do sad. I want people to feel good. So ultimately, I'm having a good time.
Right.
It's not a fake. When you see me on stage laughing, and I am genuinely happy. So I'm trying to do my best to reflect that I'm really just having a good time. If you aren't, I'm still having a good time.
Right.
I'm there to please the people there, but I'm really having a good time. And I feel like I do my best to exude that. For the musicians that are on stage, because I'm joking around with the guys on stage the whole time.
Yeah,
I'm joking around.
I've got to play a couple shows with you.
With me,
like,
yeah.
You bring it up, man.
I try to, the energy.
Yeah.
I want to bring the energy up, and that's what I want to convey. Just some positive energy, but not just fluff, not just because it feels good. Okay. I want there to be a message, but I want you to dance too.
Okay. Yeah, good.
Man, that was a doozy.
Well, here's another really good one.
Okay.
This is from Bobby Hogg. I think he had you in class or something at some point. I'm not sure. He'll explain it. He does a better job of explaining it than I do. I barely listen to anything that happens in this show. I don't even like this show.
So Charlton, this question is for you. My name's Bobby Hogg. I was in the College of Charleston music program like 20 years ago, and Quentin Baxter was our jazz combo instructor, and he told us at the time that you have perfect pitch. And I was just curious if that, as a musician, I imagine it's probably amazing, but I wonder if it's like a blessing and a curse. So I'd love to hear your answer. Like, for instance, if you're playing and the, guitarist is a little bit out of tune or something, and do you notice those things more than other people? And I wonder if it's a blessing and a curse. So I'd love to hear your answer. Thanks.
Yes, it is totally a blessing and a curse. Definitely more blessing, though. I mean, it has its advantages. And at first, I didn't know that I had perfect pitch. I was told that I had perfect pitch when I was...
I'm interrupting, but could you back up and explain perfect pitch to people who may not know?
Perfect pitch is when I can tell people what the note is that I hear without having any reference point. I could walk into a room and if it's quiet enough, I can hear what... if there's a light that's buzzing, I can tell you what that note is. If a horn on a car plays, I could tell you what that note is. A train horn, I can tell you what that note is. Wow. All of those things.
Now, is that something you're born with, or did you train yourself, or a little bit of both?
Well, I personally believe, and there are a lot of people that have done studies on this, but my personal belief is that I think at an early age you can develop it. I think everybody might be born with it. That's just my personal belief, but it's about development. Now, here's the thing. Earlier in the show, we were talking about how my sister and my brother were taking piano lessons. Well, when they were taking piano lessons, they were just beginning. And so they had to find, their way around the keyboard. And one of the exercises that the teacher would do, Mr. Sanders, he would say, all right, I want you to find all of the C's for me. And so sitting right there in front of middle C, and he had explained how they could find it. It's the way that he told them. He said, you've got the two black keys together, and you've got the three, together, and it's two and it's three and it's two and it's three. If you go to the two black keys, the one immediately down on the left is the C. And so they would sit there and they would have to play all of the C's, do, and they would do that. Now, I think my personal belief is that being at 3 years old, when you are impressionable and you are hearing that, and you are punching those things, or you're slamming your things, find all of the A's, find this note, or that's what I think that I got with the development of my ear.
Right.
And so I didn't think about it as something that was different until I was told that I had perfect pitch. Again, being the bratty little kid in strings class in 4th grade, when, the teacher tunes you up, and they said, she said, I can't remember the kid's name. She said, play an A so that everybody can tune, and they grabbed their instrument and they were like,
And you're like, it's killing you.
I went, I went, that's not A. She said play A. And they played it again. And it was like, you're playing B flat. It's A sharp. That you're playing A sharp and B flat. Wow. She said play A. And Mrs. Householder, Mrs. Ezel now, but Mrs. Householder, she walked over and she said, you really think that's an A, and a B flat? And I said, yes, ma'am. Wow. Don't you? I didn't know. Right. I figured everybody, knew that, And so she pulled out her tuning fork, Yes. And she clicked on it and put it up to my ear, and I'd never seen a tuning fork before. And she put it up to my ear and she says, what do you hear? And I said, that's an A. And she went over to the piano and she played another note. She says, what's that? And I said, that's this. She played another note. What's that? And then she played a chord and she said, what notes do you hear? And I told her all the notes that she heard. So that's what perfect pitch is. Right?
Charlton is a mutant.
I'm sitting there thinking, man, I wish I could do that.
The only time that it really gets in the way, being in church, when I would play piano, be the church musician, and I would have to back, some singers or something like that. And sometimes they would sing in the cracks. That's what we call it. Right. It's not quite G, it's not quite A flat.
No auto-tune.
And they refuse, no auto-tune. They refuse to move.
Right.
I would try to nudge them to this or whatever. They refuse to move. Or my kryptonite is that if I am playing a keyboard and somebody hits the transpose button, and suddenly now when I press C or if I press G or whatever and I don't hear those notes, that's my kryptonite. That's like scramble.
Off the whole thing.
It throws off the whole thing for me. That's me personally. Now I know some people that have perfect pitch that are able to do that, but me personally, that's not that I've never really. Been.
You got to work on your game, son.
I do have to work on my game.
I was just dying to say that.
But at the same
time, amazing talent.
It is.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, one of the advantages is that there have been a lot of times where I've been in situations where they say, well, can you accompany me on this song? And I'm like, I'm not too familiar with the song, and they'll give me a recording of it, and I'll say, all right, give me 5 minutes, and I'll play the song and I'll just write out the chords as it goes along. And that makes it
that's cool.
That's very cool. That's a lifesaver.
Wow, that would be so good on every bandstand I've ever been on in my life. Because I'm just an old bass player. I start off playing punk rock, so I'm not.
One time, I'm not there. we were playing out of town, and he's gonna be mad if he hears this. I'm gonna make sure he hears it. But Ranky Tanky was playing out of town, and we were about to start the show, and Clay was because of the style that he wanted to play this particular song. He used the capo on this particular song, and he would start the song and he put his capo on, and they were like, ladies and gentlemen, Ranky Tanky, and he started playing, and it was 1 fret off. And I heard it and I went, yo, stop. And everybody looked at me like I was crazy. And I looked at him and I just mouthed, move your capo.
He just didn't notice.
going.
Yeah,
He just put it on there. And he just didn't pay attention that quick. And it was one. I was like, "Yo, stop!
Yeah.
Stop!" and all of them looked at me like, "What is wrong with him?"
Yeah.
You know. And I looked at him. And I was, "Move your cape on." And that saved us.
Yeah, right. Well, that would have been bad.
Yeah, it would have been bad.
Yeah.
Let's hear another song then, if that's all right with you guys. Right. Take a song break and listen to the other song that you sent, which is "Man in Motion."
Ah, yeah.
That one. and we're back. I have a question of my own I was kind of curious about. So what about your relationship to your music has changed since you got into this whole thing? Is anything different?
For me personally, I do more deep diving. I always tell people, and it's funny because a lot of folks are, quote unquote, amazed by my music knowledge, but I am very, very late to the game. And that's why I'm so thankful for, like Quentin Baxter and Kevin Hamilton, who were listening to so many things that I've come to love years before, Rob will tell you, we have a love for Prince. I didn't start getting into Prince until I was in college in the early 90s. And
that's crazy.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
It is.
You just heard him.
Yeah.
Seems like you might have had this before.
We've talked about this before. Right. Yeah. But once I got into, listening to Prince, I just became this, maniac fanatic.
Yes.
Right. But that's an example of how late to the game I am and not knowing the backstory on things. Not knowing the backstory, I told my college professor who, you know this story?
Yes.
My college professor, who was a trumpet player, and this was at Berkeley. I'm the only trumpet player in a room full of guitarists and drummers. And the trumpet player, the professor was going around and asking everybody what their instrument was and everything. And he gets to me and I said, well, I play trumpet. He was like, yes, right. Finally another trumpet player. All right, who's your guy? Tell me who's your favorite? Who's your favorite? He was like, it's gotta be Miles. You like Miles Davis, right? No. I knew it. You love Miles Davis. And I looked at him and I was like, no, actually I hate Miles Davis.
Wow.
And he said, what? And I said, no, Miles Davis is horrible. And he said, well, if you don't like Miles, then who do you like? Now, this is 1989.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
He said, who do you like? And I said, Wynton Marsalis. Oh. Now, this is right off of the incident with
between the two.
Heat, right?
Yeah.
And when I said that, my professor just sort of stared at me. Man. And all of the other students moved away from me.
What?
They moved away from that A Soldier Story?
Yes.
Where with Denzel, where they moved away from him. Yes. It was just like that.
I don't blame them.
So I am late to the game. I didn't know anything about Miles's history. I didn't know anything about him playing all of these and leading all of these styles of music.
Oh yeah.
My only knowledge of him at the time was that he would stand up, he would play one or two notes, and everybody went wild. And I was like, what was that?
What's so special about that?
I did not know that he was coming off a stroke.
Right.
I did not know that he had all of these great bands.
Yeah.
That's just how late to the game I was.
That's a trip right there.
It is.
That's interesting.
It still blows my mind.
Yeah.
As soon as you started saying that, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
You know where it's going.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Wynton and Miles.
But
so it kind of goes back to what you're saying about your interest was classical, right? I mean, at the start.
And at the time, actually, the greatest trumpet player of classical music in the world was Wynton Marsalis.
Right.
Makes sense.
Definitely.
So, nowadays, though, it's all about backstories for me. Everything that I do, I examine and look for the backstory. And one of my mentors, the late Jack McCrae, always would tell me, he would say, go after the backstory, and if you can, see if you can get a backstory on the backstory.
Yes.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
And I have learned so many things, and I try to pass those things along. I go out to schools and talk with students all the time, because the majority of the time they think everything comes from a big city. And I'm like, no. Look right here in your backyard for all of these people that are the backbone of some of these major artists that are out there. They're from right over there. Them boy from Ackaby.
Don't forget about them boy.
Them boy from right over there.
Okay.
So that's something that I have really embraced in getting older is
so you're also looking at like the primary sources too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Just like when I go out and I talk to folks and tell them the things that they've come into contact with regards to Gullah, I'm looking at, the people that have influenced a lot of these styles of music and trying to figure out, who they are, identify them, why they are so important, and in some unfortunate cases, why they are not as prominently known as they are. Classic example is somebody like James Jamerson.
My hero, actually.
And
I wish I was half the man that.
And there's some people that just don't know who James Jamerson, really is, and it gets it really hurts, and it's really eye opening when you see, sometimes they'll have these lists of the greatest bass players, and you see all of these names and you don't see James Jamerson.
Right.
But if you ask one of those bass players, they're like, James is my dude. So that's definitely me as I've gotten older, is to go after the backstory.
Okay. I'm gonna keep that in mind. Backstory, the backstory. I like that. How about you, Papa Robbie?
Now, when you phrase the question, do you mean our relationship to music in general, or
Your experience
music?
of it?
My experience of it.
Or actually, to be honest with you, however you want to take it.
Okay.
However it kind of comes off to you.
When I was younger, I was always trying to hear new stuff. What's new? What's happening? What's going on? But as I get older, sometimes I kind of get depressed because, as we all do, when we're younger, a lot of amazing things, great things happen. And the music we listen to from those times is like a portal to those things, right? So I might hear something from Prince from 1987 and it'll take me back to 1987. And I'm doing that.
The context.
The context.
Right.
But as I get older, I get kind of sad because I wonder how many fantastic songs exist that I haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And it makes me sad because I know that I'm going to leave this planet and there's going to be music that's going to probably come after me, or music that's around right now that I just won't have the opportunity to hear, because if I get into a nice rabbit hole, I'm so happy because I'll get on YouTube. I might go to the there's a site, I won't plug anybody, but I will go to a site where I can download all of the live New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival shows, right? It's not for free. You got to pay for them.
You should plug
but
it.
there's a lot of it.
You should plug it, actually.
When I remember the name. But no, Frankie Tanky's on there. Everybody and they record all of these, so everything is soundboard. And that's my thing. I love the soundboard.
Yeah, me
I
too.
love soundboard recordings.
Let me tell you a story after that.
Yeah, sure. But I have gone into rabbit holes where I've discovered in my world people that I wouldn't have even bothered listening to if I didn't. Oh, I know Ranky Tanky. I know Buckwheat Zydeco Jr., but I don't know who this is. And this is another Zydeco band I've never heard of. And this is a brass band that I've never heard of before. I know Hot 8. I know Rebirth. But who are these dudes?
Yep.
And who are these women? And I'm like, and I sit there and I'm like, I'm in heaven, but I'm also sad because I'm missing out on this stuff.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. Sometimes I'll still hear about an artist and I'm like, how did I go my whole life and
miss that?
I kind of feel embarrassed.
Right. And then I'm a completist, right? So if I hear the third album and it's fantastic, oh, what were they doing?
I got to go back.
I gotta go back. What was the first one like?
Tapes.
Right. What's the second one like? They're like 12 albums deep, and now I'm trying to get my hands. 3 years ago, just started listening to Galactic.
Oh, great.
Wait a minute.
3 years ago.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
For real?
For real.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
So you get your Miles Davis moment now.
Right.
No, it's just that. All right. So I'm in a band called Squeeze Box.
Yes.
And we played ska music, and we were popular and did most of our touring from '96 through '99. And we would actually do gigs and get Rob to come up on stage and freestyle with us and stuff. But we were opening for Galactic back then.
See?
And on festivals with them. As a matter of fact, I have the funniest story about how we watched them and were egging them to finish up, so all of us could run down the street to see Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters.
Oh, wow.
Man.
Wow.
In Mobile, Alabama.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So
wow.
You just got the Galactic?
Like 3 years ago. Like it's like
tell.
everything that's around them.
I could tell.
I was like on top of it, but
you're almost.
I was almost, and you think about how everybody's just so connected to everybody. Yeah. When he talks about Ranky Tanky, I went to college with Quentin.
Yeah.
All right. Quentin left USC and then went to college at Charleston. Kevin is my cousin.
Yeah.
Kevin Hamilton's my cousin.
That's right.
Kevin introduced me to Wolverine before everybody was on top of Wolverine. He was a comic book head. So here I am, and when we were talking, I might have been in 8th grade, 9th grade, and he's saying, "Yo, check out Wolverine," and blah, blah, who's this Wolverine dude that you like so much? And then everybody. He became popular later on, right? Yeah. But I love people who are portals. People who can just show you different things. And I try to be a portal myself when I'm doing stuff on the radio, if I'm doing stuff on the podcast, if I'm doing stuff. I like to check this out.
You're getting into some deep cuts on the radio sometimes. I like that.
Try,
I really like it.
I try. I don't want to just do the stuff everybody knows. So when I see a Galactic, now I'm like, what's another band that's like that? I want some more funk, jazz,
Yeah.
Andy introduced me to Wolfpack.
And I got him on it.
You got him on it. Okay. He introduced me to that on a road trip. We were going all the way up to Cape Hatteras. Yeah. And he played it for me, and I was like, I am in love with this.
Funky.
Because I love funk.
Yeah, they're funky.
You know what I'm saying? So be a portal.
Yeah.
Kevin introduced me because right around early 90s, everybody was up on Living Color.
Yes. Yeah.
Kevin introduced me. He was like, "You like Living Color?" I was like, "Yeah, it's all right. I only really know a couple of songs.
Cult of Personality.
Cult of Personality.
Cult of Personality, Memories, all of that stuff. He was like, "Yo, you ever heard this band called Fishbone?"
Fishbone, yeah.
And I was like, "Huh?"
Yeah.
Kevin put me on Fishbone. Kevin put me on Madhouse from the Prince stuff.
He did?
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
Well,
I
understand.
I was,
we got to open up for Fishbone at the Poorhouse a while last year.
Goodness.
Noel on stage playing bass. Like,
I didn't
30 basses on stage. Each one of them $5,000.
I didn't find out about was it Mother's Finest?
Oh yeah.
Until like the 2000s.
Okay. This is. I can't.
This is turning into a confessional now.
Yeah, confessional. By the way,
you know what? Actually, I do. I send him texts, and I'm like, confession.
Random confessions. Like, seriously? But we
just so that I know he'll pray for me that night.
Right.
Now, you had mentioned something. I heard in the other shows, the previous shows, you said something about complaints. No.
Let's do that.
Complaints.
Let's get into that. So, and I don't mean complaint.
What do you mean?
Well, you know what? Actually, if you want to,
what do you mean?
To be honest with you,
right.
I've been asking people, and I think people are kind of like generally holding back a little bit. I don't expect you to do that, actually. So what are some things about the Charleston music scene at large that maybe we could improve upon?
I think it's more. It has a lot to do with personalities. Just like having a band, you got all these different personalities, and sometimes people don't work together well. But I feel like sometimes we work in silos too often. We're very small. Charleston is small. Mm-hmm. We don't really need to be working in silos. I feel like we could do a lot more. We do a decent job, but I feel like it could always be better. Like as far as genres, we got jazz, we got funk, we got blues, we got all these different things. But I don't see them come together.
Cross-pollinating.
As much. There was something when I was living in Richmond, Virginia, and they had this thing where they would have 3 bands on a stage at the same time, but there were like 3 different stages, and one band would play, then the second band would play, then the third band would play, then 2 bands would play together, then the third band would join in with the other band. Yeah, and it worked. And it was mind blowing because you're watching this like, of course they had to rehearse that. Yeah. They couldn't just jam, but that was it felt like, oh, we're all on the same page. And I had just started with a band. So to see that in action, and the drummer, Drummy Zeb, who played with the Wailers after he left Fraser, he is the one that helped put that together. So so there's reggae, there was funk, there was jazz, and there was hip hop.
Nice.
On the same stage.
Nice.
And it was mind blowing. Like
what year was that?
This was 94.
Seems like there was a lot of that in the mid 90s.
Yeah,
like
94.
The Jazzmatazz came out and all that stuff.
Like I want to see more cross pollination creatively and just how people connect with you. I feel like I'm blessed in a lot of ways because of the network. You know, I know Charlton, I know Zandrina, I know, there's people that are all in all these different pockets that are doing amazing things. I would love to see more of that, where people are like, you know what, I know him, he can come and do this with this school or talk to these kids and do, because I try to be a connector. Yeah. That's my thing. I want to connect people with, different energy. When you came, Hop, when you came and you played with the dub plates, you changed the sound.
Yeah, probably too much.
No, it worked.
They're all like, that was great, man.
No, it worked. It worked. Because my wife is a critic, okay? My wife was standing there going, y'all sounded warmer.
Interesting.
Because it was funky. Oh. You know what I'm saying? You were still doing the dance. It's had the reggae feel, but you added your funk to it.
Yeah.
So it felt to her.
Sometimes.
It felt warmer. Yeah. It felt warmer. So that was a good thing. I'd love to see more of that kind of thing. Musically, creatively, just in general. Yeah.
What about you, Charlton? What's something what you've been playing in this scene for as long as I can think of?
What grinds your gears?
What makes you mad?
I wish that locals, non-musicians in Charleston would embrace the music history that we have because it is very deep. Charleston, let alone the state of South Carolina, has ridiculous musical power. Yeah. It has always been.
I don't want to cut you off, but as a guy who's transplanted here, I've been looking for some resources about that since I've moved here. It would be nice to see like a centralized place where you can learn that. Is there such a place or a thing?
Not really. Okay. Although there is, there's a guy that wrote some books about jazz and blues musicians, and he's got about 2 or 3 volumes. And I kid you not, this is his name, Benjamin Franklin IV.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'll trust that guy.
You can find his books. But just Charleston and South Carolina, once again, going back to my friend, Jack McCrae. One time we were just sitting there, I was on a set break, and Jack was just chit-chatting, and he said, South Carolina really is the Mecca. And I was like, huh?
Right.
And he was like, just do your research, young man. South Carolina is deep with some prominent musicians or prominent star musicians and prominent sidemen, per se, that have done a tremendous amount of things. And I don't think that the general public talks about it enough like our sisters and brothers do in places like Savannah and New Orleans. Okay. And I think that really sets it apart.
You're right.
Because if you knew the history of jazz in Charleston and how comparable it is to the history of
New
jazz
Orleans.
in New Orleans, then you'd be like, huh?
Jenkins Orphanage.
Jenkins Orphanage.
Yes.
I mean, that's definitely the starting part. But you can really get even deeper than that, you know. And like talking with Jack was like, well, if they really want to be, you know, honest about it, we could say that we started it.
Good. The timeline.
Look at the timeline. Look at the timeline.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that if we collectively were to talk more about the arts here and how important Charleston is and has been for so many artists locally, even national artists that come to town. You know, we had people that would come to town to quote unquote take a vacation, but they would be over at like Miskin's, you know, trying out new material.
Yes.
Before they go out on tour. Charleston is just small enough. It's really small enough that you can come here and not be known, you know, or seen or whatever have you.
Walk down the street.
Walk down the street. There were enough. There were enough small bars and dives and everything where, you know, people would come in and they would practice their material, you know, and shed on it, and they would vacation. You know, everybody knows about Gershwin being here and everything.
Porgy and Bess.
You know. You know, Rhapsody in Blue, all of that was written here or about here. You know, he got inspiration from here, you know, but there are other mainstream artists that would come and they would, you know, play in some of these small dives up and down King Street or, you know, in the market area when they were, you know, popular back then. And, you know, I just wish that the locals would talk about it more. There's some people that talk about it because they might be older, you know, and might know, but they don't, you know, like, you know, my father always talks about how he saw James Brown for 50 cents.
My parents too.
At
County Hall?
No.
Where did he see him?
No.
Where did he see James?
Over at Riverside Beach.
Right. Because
that was
the time.
That was the time. That was You played County Hall. That was the big time.
That big time.
Yeah.
My parents saw Jackie Wilson, James Brown, and those at County Hall.
Yeah, but Riverside Beach had White's Paradise, and that was where people came. You know, you could go over there and see James. You could see Ray Charles. You could see, you know, the Basie Band. You know, Duke Band. You know, all of them.
Lionel Hampton came to Charleston a lot.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Lionel Hampton would fire people left and right.
I love Lionel Hampton.
You ever heard that story about him and Lonnie Hamilton?
No. What happened with Lonnie?
And this was folklore for a long time. And I finally did an interview with Lonnie, and I said, I have to ask you because I've been wanting to know this. Did Lionel Hampton invite you to be in his band? And he said, I was 14. I went, damn it, it happened. Yes, confirmation.
Yes.
But basically, Lionel Hampton would play. And then he had a habit of going to jam sessions. And then after the jams or during the jam session, he would watch some of his band members play. And he would watch locals come in and sit in as well during these jam sessions. And if he found somebody from the locals that outplayed somebody in his band, he would fire his band member on the spot and then invite the other person, the local person, to say, can you meet me at this place, you know, in a week? And that happened with Lonnie Hamilton. And
that is
the business. That's the business right there.
Yeah. I mean, literally, it'd be like, I'd like you to join my band. And we're talking Lionel Hampton. Arguably the most popular jazz musician at the time. You know, would you like to join my band? Yes, sir. And then he'd go, fantastic. You're going to need 2 suits. Bring this and meet me in Virginia at this place a week later. And then he would turn and he would look at the other person and be like, you know, it just ain't working out.
They give us a bus fare though, right?
That's cold.
Get your ticket home.
It depends.
Hey, Hop, I think here's the thing. Now, I know Charlton is extremely busy, right? And he's doing the Moja thing, and he's doing Ranky Tanky, and he's doing his own thing, and the trio. I think he needs to come up with an exhibit for the International African American Museum on the history of Charleston music.
Gosh, me too.
Sorry, Charlton. Sorry.
Well, I already got the little piece in there. I got the little piece about Jenkins and stuff in there.
In there. Right.
But no, really, I think, there's so much history with so many artists that I just don't think collectively. And if you compare, like I said, you go to Savannah, or New Orleans,
it's rich.
You can ask any Joe Schmo or whoever on the street, and they will talk you for weeks.
Let me ask you this: do you think some of that? Because every time we go to New Orleans, we're in heaven because you could throw a rock and you're gonna hit some musicians, little kids playing on the street, playing the drums and whatever. There's always music. Music is a part. Is ingrained. Something happened. I don't know if it's when they took the music out of the schools at on the elementary and middle school. Something happened where now, like my son goes to SOA. Music is everything to him because he listens to it. It's ingrained in him. But that's not a common thing.
No,
like it used to be.
That's considered extra now.
That's extra, right? So what happened? What do you think? Because there was a time when Charleston was still like, hey, this is what's up. And you mentioned the older people are the ones that still can tell you about it. But something happened between 2000 and now.
Well, I mean,
in the last
speaking
20
as a guy
years,
who's not from here, is it because of people who aren't from here? I mean, honestly, a lot of us have come down in town and we don't know these stories and we don't know who to ask to get taught.
That definitely is part of it. I also think that just location, even within the county, or the tri-county, there are a lot of schools that are richer. And have more resources.
Yeah, I don't
that's
even
a whole
want to
other
get into
thing.
that.
That's a whole other thing.
I could go a long way on that.
But still, overall, that's why I love going to schools and talking about it and saying, I was in North Charleston one time and I said I was at Stahl High School and I said I had like a room, the band room. It was like 70 kids in there at the time, and I said, any of y'all ever familiar with James Rollerson? And they were like, no. And I said, anybody know Levante Green? I was like, no. What about Justin Kitt? I was like, no. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, Justin. His stage name is actually King Kenobi. You know him now? And they're like, no. And they're looking at me like I'm just
what's wrong with this dude?
And I said, all right, any of y'all familiar with a rapper named A$AP Rocky? A$AP Rocky, he's the dude, yeah. And they're all arguing with each other. No, he's the best. No, he's not the best. Blah blah blah. I was like, all right, what if I told you that those three guys were the production and backing band for A$AP's live performances for the last 3 years or so? And they're just like, okay. Now, the first two.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay. Now, the first two graduated from Stahl not that long ago.
See?
Yeah.
And the other one graduated from North Charleston High School.
Yeah. See?
And then one of the kids looked at me and went, wait a minute, did you say Levante? And I said, yeah. He have a nickname? And I said, well, they call him Vonnie, for sure. He got a mohawk? And I was like, yeah. I think he played bass at my church.
Oh, nice. Light bulb.
Right? Yeah. And
that's
so, but knowing those stories and things like that, there's a young man that's from Goose Creek that was Mary J. Blige's music director. And it goes way back, a long time ago. You got people from Jenkins Orphanage that were, just the band leaders for the band, that were the music directors for the bands, and then Duke Ellington made it a point. He always had to have somebody from New Orleans and Charleston or South Carolina in general in his band. Cat Anderson played with Duke for 20-something years. Cat Anderson learned how to play the trumpet at Jenkins Orphanage. Got there when he was 4. Arguably one of the greatest lead trumpeters of all time.
Wow.
Freddie Green from Back to Green. Arguably the greatest jazz rhythm guitarist of all time. And there are things like that the general folks just don't know.
No. It's lost.
You need to get your own podcast, my friend. We consider this all day long, man.
Nobody would get another word in. My wife would be banging on the door. Let them talk. Stop it.
Well, guys, I'm going to have to call it right there, I think.
Right.
I want to thank you both for coming out here and spending some time talking to us. We are going to be back in another 2 weeks with another show. Anything you guys want people to know about?
Do we get to ask a question?
Oh, we're going to do that in a second.
That's later.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's later.
All right.
Anything you'd like to leave the listeners with?
Oh.
Once again, deep dive.
Deep dive.
Deep dive. If you're doing some music, and you look at the credits, read credits. Go find the credits. And when you look at the credits and you like the way that guitar player sound, then see what else that guitar player played on or any other person. Yep. And you would be surprised at what it leads you to and how much good music you can find.
Yep.
And even, background about where they're from.
Yes.
And
I'd say open your mind, expand as much as you can. I mean, just get off just the stuff that the algorithms give you.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Do some digging for yourself.
Do some digging for yourself.
You don't need to be led to the whatever.
Do more. Spread out.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you.